Good morning, and good morning to you. Thank you for your patience this morning. It is certainly an interesting, challenging, uncertain time to be alive. And we could ask ourselves, is now the time we should try something new, or is now the time we should kind of pull back? People aren't buying new homes, they're fixing up the ones they have. With the uncertainty of the COVID-19 virus, and we may be asking ourselves, do we live with these things for the rest of our lives, or how long is this going to go on? How do we know when it's safe to not wear masks anymore? Dave already mentioned the rule in California that churches were not to sing. And I hope they do sing. But faced with all this uncertainty, questions are perhaps in our minds. In addition to everything that's going on with the virus, we're in an election year. And there's some uncertainty about what's going to happen. What will life look like in the coming years? And there's obvious tension and strain in the country and all sorts of things going on. And we could say, well, is now the time to do outreach? Or is now the time to kind of circle the wagons and pull back and protect ourselves? May even ask, have God's people ever been in this situation before? And it turns out, yes, this has happened before. And the prophet Haggai challenged the people of his day to obey God, to glorify God by obeying his will, overcoming complacency, even though they lived in challenging and uncertain times. So I'll give you a moment to find the book of Haggai. A couple of unusual features of that book. It's part of the minor prophets, so that's toward the very end of our Old Testament. It's the only book of the Bible that has 2 chapters. It's just 38 verses in total. The prophet Haggai preached 4 messages that the Lord gave him over a period of about 4 months. And we'll look at those, Lord willing, over the next 3 Sundays. But we need to place him in a bit of the context. So you can still keep flipping toward Haggai. If you recall, in the big picture of the Bible, we begin in the book of Genesis in this early period, sometimes called the primeval period, Adam and Eve and their children, Cain and Abel, and then Seth. And the scripture mentions that in his time, people began to call upon the name of the Lord. And some years later was Noah and the great flood, and there was a wiping out, a judgment of sinful humanity and an opportunity to start over. And that didn't work out so well. The people were disobedient to God, built a tower at Babel. They wanted to have a monument to themselves, not to God. And God focused in on one man whom he chose, Abram. And he gave promises to Abram. We've looked at some of those this morning already. And later, God changed his name to Abraham. He and his wife Sarah had great difficulty in having children, but God gave them one child, Isaac. Isaac, in turn, married Rebekah. They had 2 sons, Esau and Jacob. Jacob was a little bit tricky, a bit of a manipulator, uncomfortably close to my own nature, I must admit. And Jacob, the manipulator, met his match in his uncle Laban, who tricked him. But the Lord blessed him. He came out from his time with Laban with 4 wives and 12 sons, which became the 12 tribes of the nation of Israel, named for Jacob when his name changed to Israel. You may recall that one of his sons, Joseph, had dreams from God, and in what looked like an incredible injustice, he was sold into slavery in Egypt. But it turned out that in God's sovereignty, he was used to preserve his people. He became a leader in Egypt and provided for his entire family. And over time, they began to grow in Egypt, and the Egyptians were perhaps jealous of them and put them under bondage. You recall the Lord raised up Moses to deliver the people, bring them out of Egypt. And Moses could see into the promised land, but the Lord did not allow him, because of his sin, to go in. Joshua took the people